to say that, but it's going to be difficult. Steven Gerrard, of course, spending his whole playing career at Liverpool, where he won the Champions League, and now returning there as a manager, particularly with the talk about whether or not he will be the successor to Jurgen Klopp. There's so much going on around that fixture. Just purely in footballing terms, to assess Steven Gerrard's first few games in charge.
Well, he's been fantastic from where Aston Villa were, certainly on their knees, you have to say. They've just got beat 1-0 by Southampton. Really poor performance, run of wretched games. He's come and gave everyone belief. It was a tough first game against Brighton, where Brighton were almost expected to beat them, to be fair, considering where Aston Villa were. He somehow managed to kind of install belief into the side. He's got Ollie Watkins firing. You'd have to say he's done a fantastic job. Quietly, he'd probably say that he's probably done better than he imagined, considering the games that he had. But you'd have to say he's taken to Premiership management like he's been doing it all his life.
It's been really interesting to watch because, like Tim, as you will know, it takes time to get and we'll talk more about this in the second part, but getting a real philosophy, if you like, or a style of play, however you want to put it, in place. And there will naturally be a new manager bounce. But do you see a difference between a Dean Smith Aston Villa side and a Steven Gerrard one?
I think the confidence is there. Obviously, when you get a win, the confidence bounce into the next game. He's won 3 out of 4, and the only team will beat him is Man City. This is the acid test when you go to Anfield. Stevie, you know that. I think they've been fortunate in a few games. I think they're wide open the way they play. He's obviously got them playing with confidence and playing on the front foot. The fullbacks are vacating their area very, very quickly. If you do that against Liverpool, with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, you get paid. I think he's done a great job. I don't think it was broke. I think Dean Smith was very unlucky to lose his job, but I think there was something not right there, and it was festering. And I think they've made a great appointment. They've got someone who's as hungry as the owners, which are the owners of Villa now are very, very hungry. Got a lot of money. If he continues to do as well as he's doing up until January, when that window opens, I'm sure they're going to invest into the playing staff. Stephen will have his ideas who wants to bring to the club. But first and foremost, what he's done is he's improved the playing squad, what he's got. Some players were non-existent out of the picture. He's brought them back in, and he's improved them. And I think that's the art of a good manager. He's obviously relevant in the players' minds because they still remember Steven Gerrard, the legend, and I think that helps. I did it with your dad, when Kenny Dalglish he rings you up and he says, "Come and play for me." It's almost like, well, Kenny Dalglish loves me and he wants me to come and play.
Because you're old enough to remember him.
That's it. But that's and I was at the time, and he'd come in, and I know Stephen doesn't join in training, but Kenny used to join in training, and he was actually the best player we had. So, you can it's relevant. He's won at the top level. He's been there before. Stephen's done his apprenticeship at Glasgow Rangers, and then he's come to the Premier League, and he's at a huge football club. I think it's almost disrespectful for the Aston Villa fans to hear people talking about a stepping stone to the Liverpool manager's job. Now, he only gets a Liverpool manager's job if he continues to do well at a giant football club, what he's already at, which is Aston Villa. When Stevie went in there, like me, you don't realise how big that club is until you actually get in the door. He's got a great opportunity there now. Fantastic opportunity. He's had a wonderful start, so I'm sure he'll continue with that. But this weekend, massive test for him, and he realises that.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge test. And as Tim was saying, that there might be additions in January, particularly if this form continues under Steven Gerrard. They did make changes over the summer, Aston Villa, because they had the Grealish money to spend. Dean Smith knew there were senior players coming back in, players that he wanted to see play together. Is Steven Gerrard benefiting from that as well, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's always a sense of knowing your worth, and I think, like Tim said, I think Steven Gerrard's done that with a lot of players who perhaps had been on the edge or hadn't quite worked out where they fit yet, because the whole narrative was, what are Aston Villa going to do without Jack Grealish? And it felt like what Steven Gerrard has done is no one's talking about that really anymore. I mean, even in the statement in which Dean Smith left, there was still a reference to Grealish, and I feel like what Steven Gerrard has done is almost say, the word Grealish is banned. We're not going to talk about that. We've got to move on and look ahead. I think he's done that really well, because now players aren't being marked or analysed on the basis of what Jack Grealish did. They're being looked at as themselves and what they're doing. And I think the central areas has been huge as well. When I've spoken to a lot of Aston Villa fans, they were talking about under Dean Smith how their midfield was completely non-existent. And what Steven Gerrard's done in the short space of time is made that midfield completely dominant. They attack through the middle a lot more than they ever did. I think work rate, which is something we're going to talk about a lot on this show, has been huge. They're working a lot harder, pressing a lot harder, Gerrard, when he came into the job, was talked about as someone who has very high expectations of his players, and they've definitely bought into that. And he's very ambitious, like Tim said. And I think the transformation, it definitely took me by surprise, because I didn't think they were going to hit the ground running like they have.
Really interesting to get Emi Martinez's perspective on what Steven Gerrard has brought to the club, not just in terms of what he's got the players doing, but in terms of the stature that he has, in terms of the way that he can influence the players just by being there. And the point that Flo made on that, with Grealish leaving, do Aston Villa now have somebody who can be the focal point of the club, if you like?
Yeah, like the kind of the icon in terms of what he's kind of produced in his career. And listen, Steven Gerrard's one of the best we've seen in this country. But you're right, when you look at some of the players out there, they're probably in awe of him. I mean, obviously they're playing with Jack last season. He was fantastic while he was at Aston Villa. You can't hide that fact. But someone like Steven Gerrard has been at the very top. The information and the experience that he'd be able to give some of these players, because some of them, as I said, are still going to be fans of him and still probably a little bit starstruck. I mean, it's one of them. I remember when I stepped into the England squad, meeting Steven Gerrard for the first time, even under I'm playing in the Premier League, I'm still a bit like, oh, it's Steven Gerrard, do you know what I mean? So some of these players in the squad would be like, well, what?
Is that true?
Well, honestly, generally, because I was coming from Charlton, I'd just been in the Championship. I stepped up to the Premier League with Charlton. I played one game, and all of a sudden, there's all these superstars, and Steven Gerrard, and he was one of the nicest, I'd have to say, that was out there. And I think that will help him as well in terms of his management. It's the way he comes across, and with the players at that football club, they'll be getting the information from him. They'll be having conversation with him. He's approachable, and I think for some of these players, that is massive for them, and that will help in their development. So I think for me, and as Tim alluded to, the size of the football club, he is the perfect man for that job. And
what we heard is that the players are taking in that information, as you were talking about. But does it also give him a bit more leeway or right or something to be firm with the players, as we heard that he can be?
Well, we know he can be. I mean,
but what I mean is that they'll take it from him.
Yeah, of course they'll take it, because he's only doing it for one reason. He wants to be very honest in his approach. I think he was that as a player. Even when he talks to the media, there's no games playing with Stevie. You know that he's talking from the heart. And when he talks, he's very astute. He knows he's talking to the fans. He knows he's talking to the players, and they're all listening. Whenever he talks, people listen, because he doesn't say a lot, but he talks when he has to. And I think he gives them great information. He obviously gives them good information. The interesting point you make when Grealish leaving, we had the same scenario with Gareth Bale at Tottenham. When Gareth left, Villas-Boas then continued to play the same way, without the superstar, because the whole philosophy was built around one player. And I think Villa was like that, and Dean Smith continued to play the same way without having that man. And I think Stevie's come in and ripped it all up and given them all confidence and saying it's a clean slate. All of you have got an opportunity. We need to go as a team. We can't go as individuals. And it's about creating a new identity. And that identity is being honest first and foremost, leaving nothing on the pitch. And, being up there and knowing what the fans expect. Yes, they've been treated to a genius like Jack Grealish. He was fantastic for that football club. But really what they demand is roll your sleeves up, leave nothing on there, and give everything for the badge. And I think Stevie demands that. We know he demands that. I always say to players, especially when I was going through the development stage of coaching, and I always pointed to Steven Gerrard and said, if he was paid £1 a week or £1 million a week, he plays the same. He plays because he wants to win and he wants to be the top player, not because he wants the big car and this and all the things that come with being a professional footballer. He doesn't want that. He wants to win first and foremost. And he's a dying breed, certainly in the day and age where we're playing now.
So we heard Steven Gerrard spoke about glowingly here in the studio, also by Emi Martinez. But of course, he kind of has to say that about his new manager. But what are the players saying behind the scenes about their new boss? Stilian Petrov joins us now. And Stilian, I know you've been talking to some of the players in that Aston Villa squad. What have they made of this new era?
The excitement and the confidence is back again at Villa Park, and you can see from the manager, from the players. I mean, I'll listen to Martinez's interview, and you can see players now are talking about achieving different things. They're talking about achieving being in the top 8, going back to the European football, something that Villa haven't seen for the last 10 years. I mean, it's really interesting to see. In the studio you have Darren, who played for the club, I've played for the club, but also you've got a manager who used to manage Aston Villa, and the demands are high. And they've got a young manager who stamped his authority from early stage, and he's doing the right things. He's demanding, he's bringing urgency into the team and intensity. This is what probably Villa lacked for the last couple of months. And at the moment, the place is flying high because the results make the confidence, and that's what teams do. It's about winning games. And when you win games, you gain a confidence and momentum as well.
Tim was making the point that under Jack Grealish, the team was very much geared towards him, as you would do with a player of that level of talent. Do you think it needed that change to be able to look at the squad without Grealish, with the new signings, afresh?
Yes, and what Steven Gerrard brought, it's the togetherness, the unity. I remember I had the pleasure to work with Tim when he took over, and he actually took over Aston Villa at the same position, and he talked about a team performance, about being unbeaten, about playing as a unit, making sure that the teams will find it difficult to beat you. And that's what Steven Gerrard brought to Aston Villa. He came up with different ideas, with very good backroom staff, which the players are paying attention to it. The messages are very clear. He demands very high performances every single game, but also in training as well. So when the demand is one in training, you just play the same way in the games. And when you have a manager like that, you can always bet that he's going to succeed. And he's done the right things. A young manager, he went to Rangers, he had a success there, and he's been given opportunity to do it in the Premier League as well.
Stan, how important is the role of Gary McAllister, someone who's been at the club before? He was a coach when we were there, obviously knows the football club as well. Steven Gerrard's brought him with him. How important is the role that he's going to play?
Huge role, huge role. I actually spoke with Gary McAllister about a week ago regarding, our old times when we worked together. And he's actually filling in Steven Gerrard about the club, the fans, the expectation, the two new owners, because the owners are really demanding. They want to succeed, and they want to succeed quick because they're throwing a lot of money, they're spending money, they're improving the structure of the club, but they also want to see a result. And Gary McAllister is the perfect person to actually guide Steven Gerrard in his new role.
Stilian, they've got Liverpool this weekend, Aston Villa, and obviously there's going to be a lot of focus on Steven Gerrard, his association with the club, possibly what the future holds for him further down the line. But in a purely footballing sense, what will the Villa fans expect from this game at Anfield?
Win. That's what Steven Gerrard is talking about. He is not really playing the occasion. He's just playing the game. He's there to win. He will enjoy every moment of it, guys. He's an icon for this club as a player, and he wants to make his mark as a manager. He's got the opportunity to do it against Liverpool, and he will do it. The team will be prepared. The team will push, and I don't think they'll sit back. They'll just try to win the game. So he will enjoy every single moment, but he's got the right to do that. He's done it as a player, and he's back as a manager now as well, as opposition, but he will enjoy every single moment. But if, you try to win it, because that's the way he managed. He managed to win, and we've seen that from the start.
You said right at the beginning of this interview that you said the players now have different targets. What do you think Villa are aiming for this season?
Europe. Steven Gerrard was very clear that he wants to bring the European nights. It's going to be very difficult. We all know. Later in the show, I'm sure that Tim will discuss that, because it's a really difficult task. It's a really, really difficult task. But at least they've got targets now. And when you have a target, you aim to achieve that target, and his targets are high. And when you have a manager who demands those kind of targets, as a player, you have to push, and you have to push hard. He talks about he won't let anybody being lazy, anybody hiding, and he talks about half times he had to raise his voice, and some players have heard that already, so they know they're there to push and achieve. Because if they don't, he will change it. He's a young manager who wants to stamp his authority, and he's gonna stamp it hard because he wants to be successful the way he was as a player.
Stilian, really lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, guys.
Thank you very much. Really interesting to get those thoughts from someone so involved in the club. But as he pointed out, you've played for them, you've managed them. You both have an investment in Aston Villa. This game this weekend, though, as we've touched on, it's going to come with so much more than just a footballing remit, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, it's like a player when you go back to your former club. There's a little bit, even though people say to you, "Oh, come on, it's just a game." It's not really, because you're going back. You want to make an impression, Stephen.
You have to say it's just a game,
have to
don't
say
you?
it.
As if you can't come out and say, "No, my head's all over the place."
Honestly, people all will be trying to calm him down. You know, it's just another game. But for Steven Gerrard, I mean, it's a unique situation. It's the only club he ever played for. He was so successful at Liverpool. There's got to be other feelings going on, but obviously he's got a job to do. Listen, he's going to one of the most informed sides in the world, by the way, which is going to be difficult. Aston Villa, I mean, Stan was saying there about Europe. It's got to be the aim this season. I don't think they're going to get anywhere Europe this year, but potentially next year. But for Steven Gerrard, I said, going into this weekend, there's so much more right on it. He will try and control the emotions, but when he walks out of that tunnel, listen, the Liverpool fans are going to be singing his name. He's got to try and keep all of that in check. He's got to try and get his information onto the pitch. It's a lot easier said than done.
No, it's difficult, really difficult. I did it myself, managing Tottenham and then taking Aston Villa back to Tottenham, needing to win for our lives. You know, we were struggling at the bottom of the division at Villa and managed to get a win. Now, I felt like, you know, like the players don't celebrate after a game. So when I saw the referee put the whistle in his mouth and blow for full time, I tried to keep really calm, but I could not help but jump out of my skin and start waving my fists at the Aston Villa fans. And it was just, the emotion takes over you. But I did it because, and it was twofold, and I'll be very honest with you, it was the fact that I felt that I could have done the job for Tottenham, and I wanted to go back and show the owners and the chairman that I was that man and I could have done a job. And not only that, we needed the points first and foremost for a sub. But Stevie will go back there, and as much as he will tell you he's not, he wants to get one over on Liverpool. If he can't win the league with Aston Villa, which we've already told you he can't, he wants Liverpool to win the league. Without a doubt, he's a Liverpool fan. Does he want to manage Liverpool? Of course he wants to manage Liverpool, as much as he's saying this is not a stepping stone. It has to be a stepping stone for him.
And like managers change clubs all the time. There's a difference between a stepping stone, as in I'm using Aston Villa in order to get to Liverpool, and Aston Villa is one club that I'm going to be a manager of on a pathway that may include Liverpool. They're different situations.
And we know, and I talk about it a lot, about striking while the iron's hot for managers, and you're only as good as, you know, the immediate time. I think that if he was to lose a few games, perhaps if he stayed at Rangers and never won the league this season, he would have been a failure, because you can only finish first or second up there. And then he is not at Aston Villa. It's all about timing. When is Jurgen Klopp going to step down? Is Stevie doing well at the time? And if he's not, he won't get the Liverpool job. It's very emotional, and I just think it's about luck. It's about timing at the right time. If you said to me now, could he go now and manage Liverpool? I would say yes. I think he's going to become a better manager in time with experience and managing a big club like Aston Villa. But I think he's got to be very lucky for it to fall into his lap at the right time. And I think that it's all down to Jurgen Klopp, because at Liverpool, why would you get rid of Jurgen Klopp at the moment? You know, you even forget about that. It's about Stevie going there. Very emotional day for him and his family at the weekend. But acid test for him. I mean, he's not got a magic wand there. He's given him a lift at Aston Villa. But for him to go there, and for anyone to say that they fancy the Aston Villa to get points on Liverpool, who are flying at the moment, be crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that at the end of all of this and all this speculation, and there's going to be lots of talk about it from now right through, in fact, actually, from the moment Steven Gerrard joined Aston Villa, everybody was looking ahead to this fixture. But there's going to be a game. And at that stage, it just comes down to the players and the way that the Villa players are able to cope with Liverpool or exploit what they would know as they would see as their weaknesses.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I don't give them a massive chance of getting a result there. But at the same time, you never know. They might pull a surprise. And I think the confidence in Liverpool at the moment is just unmatched. They work so hard together. The understanding that they have with each other is brilliant, and they've got some of the best finishers in the world. But we saw against Wolves last weekend that they can be frustrated, and they need a little bit of luck at the same time. So I think other teams have shown that they can match them, but I don't give them much a chance. But I think it was really interesting, Tim said, about the ownership at Aston Villa, because this whole season we've talked a lot about, I mean, the last few seasons we talked a lot about the ambitions of owners not matching up to the coaching staff that they bring in. You know, the Chelsea and Abramovich, it's been an ongoing saga with some of the managers that they've brought in because they need results. And it'd be interesting as a young manager how Gerrard does deal with that. Is it better to have a younger coach in who maybe hasn't been exposed to so many bad times with demanding owners, or is he actually going to push back more because he's young and he's hungry and he has his own ambitions? It's an interesting dynamic to balance because we know from the Contes, the Mourinhos, the Guardiolas of this world, they've been there and they've done that. They've dealt with all that stuff and sometimes put up with it and they'll walk out the door. But as a young manager, is he willing to go along with that because he wants to win?
I think he's a perfect fit for him because they're as hungry as he is. The last thing they need is an old hat manager who's seen his best times, coming to pick up his last payday and really have boring ideas. Steven is evolving in his management career and he's as hungry as he is. And like I said, just from the outside, and I mean, I know Steven, but no, I don't know him very, very well. You know, just by looking at him, he's an honest character and you know what you're going to get from him. And I think as a manager, if I'm putting my money into a football club, I want someone like him. I want someone as hungry as me.
Ambition.
And if he fouls, it's going to hurt him. You know, and if you take an Ancelotti, a Mourinho, you know, a Benitez, if they foul, they've done it before. They just say, well, I've done it previously.
Do you think there's a timeline though on success for them? I think Europe is realistic fairly soon, but do you think there's a timeline where they say you've got to get here by this point?
I think they've got to win the Champions League by 4 years. No
Easy,
pressure.
simple.
No pressure at all.
The point that you're both making is a really interesting one, which is the sort of career choices that Steven Gerrard has made, because he's gone to Rangers where there is all that expectation on
and
being
you will win trophies as well at some point.
Well, you are expected to win trophies, and if you don't, as you said, he could have finished second in the league and been seen possibly as a failure at the end of that time. So, but it's in a lower profile league in the Premier League. He's gone to Aston Villa, which is a huge club with European history, with great history of success, but is a slightly lower profile club in terms of its kind of global presence. So he's gone to clubs where there is massive expectation, massive intense pressure internally, but yet just slightly under the radar, not completely under the radar, but just slightly lower profile maybe than his
well,
ultimate
certainly
aim.
where they're coming from in recent times.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was 10 odd years before they was even in Europe again, for him to take them to the Europa League. But
what I'm saying is quite clever decisions, that he's put himself under enormous pressure.
Yeah.
But almost slightly out of the spotlight.
He's balanced it well.
Yeah, but it's just fell into a slap. It was clever decisions, but if Liverpool wanted him 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago when he joined Villa, he's going to Liverpool. I mean, let's have it right. I mean, he's not saying, no, let me go to Villa first, see if I can get him to the Europa League, then I'll tick that box and then I'll just move into the Liverpool hot seat.
But in the meantime,
it just fell for him.
Yeah,
it's perfect. He could have stayed where he was.
Yeah.
I think it was more risk staying than to leave. Sometimes that job, but like we say, it's very... what's the right word? Anyway.
I didn't know where you were going with this.
Stevie's picked the right job.
Yeah.
I think it's there for him. Should he take it? Should he not? Of course he should. It's the Premier League. The lure of the Premier League for anyone to become a manager is too much to turn down. And I think he realises that. He's gone as far as he could. Even though it was a short period of time he was there at Rangers, he knows he has to go to the Premier League. Aston Villa, we've been there. It's a huge job. Massive football club. I think he will go there and I think he'll do well. What is the expectation? I think in 2 years' time, possibly Europa League. I think if he takes it next year, he's ahead of time with it. And then he's on the journey.
Do you know what he's done early, which is good, is he's got success early, hasn't he? So he's experienced it, going to Rangers, and as you said, I know it's not the most coveted league in the world, but he has been successful. He's won the league there. Yeah. So at least now he's not chasing. You know, these managers sometimes are trying to get trophy, trying to get success.
Even like a Pochettino, perhaps.
He's still, exactly. So exact same thing. So for him, I think it was quite shrewd going to Rangers, kind of learning his trade, being successful, and now obviously the ambition and the expectations are completely different because, as I said, I think Europa League in the next couple of years, I think is realistic. But I think if he does do it next season, then I think, as Tim said, he's way ahead of time getting Aston Villa with this current squad, with the investment that teams around them are making. He's ahead of the curve.
First Anfield, though. Just one last one on Steven Gerrard going to Anfield. As a squad of players, you went there with Blackburn with the chance to win the title when your manager had been at Liverpool and had that association with them. How is that as a player, where all the focus is on the manager, the storylines around it are all about the manager? Is that taking the pressure off the players, or is it heaping more attention on it. Obviously, in a title decider, it's a slightly different.
Well, I'm sure he would have learnt from the managers he's had, and the man we're talking about, Kenny Dalglish, he would have learnt off himself, Stevie. You know, he would have seen how he acts and how he took the pressure off us, Ken. When we was there, it was just about, don't listen to the noise. It's all about 11 men against another 11 men. They don't want you to win. This was a story. They're going to let us win because they don't want Man United to win the league. And they're going to let us win because I managed the football club and I was a legend at the club. That's what Kenny was telling us. That's not going to happen. That 11 men want to beat you. Now it's all about playing. When the ball starts rolling, we know Liverpool are so good. We have to have a plan. But he has to give the confidence to the group of players what he's got there, who are on a high at the moment. Like I said, I think they've been fortunate in a few of their games, but they've also been wide open. If they're as wide open as they have been, they will get paid up there. It will be the end for the honeymoon will be over. It will be like, well, Stephen's not good enough to manage at this top level. It's a load of nonsense. It's a building process for Steven Gerrard, and I think he will get there in the end. But he's got to block out the noise. Block out all the noise of what people are saying about him going back there. It's not about him. He's done his job in the training field now. Once he sends them over the line, yes, he can affect it with some changes off the bench. But Jurgen Klopp wants to win as much as he does. And do you think Jurgen Klopp wants the pretender to come into Anfield? Yeah. And he's going to, Jurgen will be thinking in his head, well, he's rehearsing for my job here. I'm not ready to give this one up. I'm enjoying the time. You know, the last thing I want is him to get one over on us. There's not one player in Aston Villa's squad who could play for Liverpool. Now, he has to remember that, Jurgen. He has to think, because if they do turn him over, it's because Stephen has got them organised